Tonight, a public inquiry's heard a damning account of how 6 women were groomed by a police spy who was posing as a climate activist. Mark Kennedy infiltrated a Nottingham protest group that tried to shut down a local power station. One of his victims has told us how she was targeted, as our social affairs correspondent Jeremy Ball reports.
Mark Kennedy spent years posing as a climate activist, but he was really an undercover cop. He gained the trust of campaigners who were targeting Ratcliffe Power Station by deceiving several women into intimate relationships. Today, a public inquiry heard how his cover was blown by a woman called Lisa, who'd spent 6 years believing they were committed to each other.
He attended her father's funeral. She discovered his passport in his real name, which included reference to a child. They presented him with unanswerable evidence, and he admitted the truth.
Kate Wilson was groomed in Nottingham by Mark Kennedy too. He wooed her by pretending he shared her love of country music.
He worked his way into my family. He told a story that he came from a broken home, his father had left them, his mother brought them up on his own. It was political policing. I mean, it was straight out of East Germany.
And Mark Kennedy wasn't the only one. It lifted the lid on a national scandal. Other police spies had children from bogus relationships.
I felt a huge sense of betrayal.
He gave this explanation to BBC Radio Nottingham, but today the undercover policing inquiry heard his impact on the women was devastating.
On one occasion at the G8 demonstrations in Edinburgh, Sarah was detained for longer than others, isolated, questioned and photographed by police. Afterwards, she was tearful. And she was consoled by Kennedy, who stayed in her tent that night. Now she is preoccupied by this image and the fact that she was being consoled by a police officer who may in fact well have been responsible for that detention.
Mark Kennedy's cover started to unravel after he was arrested in Sneinton, along with climate activists preparing equipment to shut down Ratcliffe Power Station.
These were social and environmental campaigners, not terrorists. There is nothing difficult about balancing the rights of women against the interests of the state in policing environmental, political and social justice movements.
Mark Kennedy said his Metropolitan Police bosses knew what he was doing, and today the inquiry heard emotional manipulation was a policing tactic and that sex was used as a surveillance tool.
Well, we can speak to Jeremy now. There's been some really shocking revelations that have come out today.
Yes, Sarah, some horrendous accounts. We heard that many of these women now have post-traumatic stress disorder. We also heard about the impact on parents of children who died because some of these police spies took on their identities. That was known as assuming squatters' rights. Now, there have been apologies from the Metropolitan Police, but these hearings are going to try to find out whether laws were broken, as well as who knew, who approved it, and the scale of what happened too. And this is just the start of a huge inquiry into all aspects of undercover policing. It's also expected to look at the miners' strike in Nottinghamshire.
OK, Jeremy, thank you.